Gwen with Next Level Ministry. And as you may very well have heard, Netflix came out with an original series on March 31st, worldwide release. The series is called 13 Reasons Why. Now you can read summaries online, but essentially, the cinematography in this series is phenomenal. They really got some things right. Whenever the main character, Hannah, is alive, they always use a rosy lens. Everyone's a little bit brighter, everything's a little bit happier. In any of the scenes depicted after her death, they always use a lens with a bit of a blue hue, which makes it more somber, more depressing, more sad. There is an MA warning that's listed on the series. However, you really have to kind of look for it to see it. And this doesn't prevent younger viewers from watching. There's only a direct warning before 3 episodes that all 3 of those episodes depict either blatant and graphic rapes or Hannah's suicide. Let's be honest, Netflix created the show to sell subscriptions, and they succeeded. It's a drama that's ultra concentrated and unrealistic, but man, it sure is pushing up their subscriptions, and it would be viral. But it's not viral. It's become so popular that people are actually calling it a cultural phenomenon among adolescents. 13 Reasons Why is extremely dangerous. It's not a show about suicide, it's a show about manipulation through suicide. It's become so popular among teens, being dubbed a cultural phenomenon, and one of the reasons is because this generation really values transparency, with being real, with being raw, and this show sure is raw. It portrays certain aspects of a teen's life in graphic detail. Some are factual and realistic, other aspects are taken so much to the extreme that if that does happen in a teen's life, it's pretty few and far between. But in this scenario, it makes it look very commonplace. 13 Reasons Why normalizes the use of alcohol and drugs. It poorly handles the topics of depression, bullying, revenge, same-sex attraction, abuse, masturbation, voyeurism, assault, self-harm, rape, counseling, suicide, forgiveness, and parent-child relationships, just to name a few. The flagrant depictions are disturbing in the least. The producers and the directors did not heed the warnings of mental health professionals. The depictions in the show go directly against every single one of the best practices for addressing suicide responsibly from reportingonsuicide.org. With this concern is the graphic depiction of the multiple rapes and Hannah's suicide itself. Every little detail of her suicide is shown. This not only glamorizes, but romanticizes suicide, as does the rest of the series. And the grave concern here is that this can lead to copycats. I've already spoken with youth ministers who have had suicide copycats from this show, or suicides that resulted from watching this show and the different triggers that it has. There are a plethora of triggering content throughout this series. This can bring up traumatic memories and repressed events. This can cause strong emotions that youth don't have the coping skills to deal with. It can make it dangerous for those who experience mental illness and for those who don't have a fully formed frontal lobe. This means anyone under the age of 25, aka all youth, teens, adolescents, and many young adults. The frontal lobe is the rational part of the brain. It allows us to respond to situations with good judgment, giving us an awareness and an understanding of long-term consequences. Teens, since their frontal lobe isn't fully developed, they process the information with their amygdala, which is the emotional part of the brain. There is a cultural shift that is currently going on. This show is going to further pour into that. When I was in college, during my junior, senior year, I was a resident assistant. And in the year previous, there were a lot of shows that came out in the media of what college life is really like. And it should be air quotes, really like. What the media was depicting through different shows was that Thursday night is party night. Those of us that were current college students thought this was absurd because that just wasn't the reality of college. But the next year, a group of freshmen came in, and sure enough, every Thursday night they were going out partying because that's what they thought they were supposed to do. This past week, I talked with my middle school youth group and simply asked them if they've heard of this show, if they've spoken with anyone about it. Almost every single one of them raised their hands. Many of them raised their hands when I asked if they had seen the show. My fear is that they're going to see shows like this and think that this depiction is what the reality of the high school years are like. They may start living out this behavior once they get into high school because of this perceived expectation. There are some very horrifying things in this show, including that it shows no hope for anyone who has experienced trauma. It depicts depression as untreatable. It doesn't show that there is a light through the darkness. It doesn't show that adults can help, that friends can truly support and get the help that their peers need. It doesn't show that things can get better, that things do get better. There's one exception, and that would be in the last 15 minutes of the show, when one of the main characters, reaches out to an outcast, when another character tells an adult that she'd been raped. Though, in this last 15 minutes as well, another student attempts suicide on his life. This reminds me of the Blink-182 song called Adam's Song. It's just not effective to have a hopeful line or scene at the end of an entire series that portrays hopelessness. In Adam's Song by Blink-182, people call it the suicide song because the whole song goes through talking about how I can't wait to go home to end my life. I'm all alone. There's no one with me. But then, towards the end of the song, there's a line or two that talks about hope, that talks about, I can't wait to wake up tomorrow. But that's not what the song is known for. And I know I had a friend in high school that took his life and intentionally had that song playing. He wasn't playing it on repeat because it was a song that brought him hope. I would strongly discourage anyone from watching this show. If you're an adult that hasn't seen it, there's plenty of summaries online to help you to feel armed and equipped. But even if you haven't seen it, you don't need to in order to have discussions with your teens. See, if you haven't seen the show, there's actually a great benefit because the teens and the youth that you talk with that have seen it will have to explain it to you. Even if they've spoken with their friends about it, your teen who may not have seen it will have to explain what their friends have said. And they'll automatically share the things that struck them the most. So this will give you an insight to what really impacted them, what's going on in their life, what they want to bring up or talk about. Please get into conversation with your teens about this, with your college students about this, with your young adults. Talk with other parents about it. Despite the fact that it's now a cultural phenomenon, I spoke with a parent just yesterday who had never even heard of the show. We need to equip our adults to continue to guide and lead this generation closer to Christ. God has so much more in store for you. Teens don't have the tools to process the influx of emotions that this show brings up. We need to help them understand that this show's depiction of reality actually isn't reality, and that all of these things that occur in the show aren't normal, that there is hope, that there is help. At Next Level Ministry, we're here to support, train, and empower you. Share this video with friends, parents, pastors, and coworkers to make them aware of what today's youth and young adults are encountering. Contact us further for training, coaching, and visit the free resources through our website. Look up the history of what is being watched on your Netflix, Hulu, and YouTube accounts. Get in conversation with your teens and ask direct questions, such as, have you ever experienced bullying, or any of the other topics? Follow up with open-ended questions. How, why, when, where, who? What's something else that a person could have done in this situation or that situation? Who are some people that you trust, that you can go to and be open with? Who are adults that you trust? What could you do in this scenario? Of course, pray and pray and pray for the power of the Holy Spirit to be the greatest influence in their decisions. And know that in every situation, regardless of how dark and dismal it may seem, there is always hope. Even if you're in a situation right now that feels hopeless, that feels like there's no reason to go on or no light at the end of the tunnel, if you can't believe that there's hope, trust that I know that there is hope for you. Speak with someone that loves and cares about you and trusts you, and that you can trust, and trust that they know that there is hope for you. God bless you.